Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. We're going to be in the mix with Mr. Politics today, Hassan Giordano. He's going to check in with us to give his political analysis of what happened in Georgia and the impact that it's going to make on 2024, especially since President Trump put so much hope in Herschel Walker. We'll have that conversation. Also, let's talk a little bit about healthcare in America, why it's important for us to get enrolled right now, especially as the national mandate around COVID-19 is coming close to an end. We'll talk a little bit about it. And then let's talk about health, wellness, and fitness. We're going to be checking in with Mr. Robert Brace, who is a health and training expert, to give us some insight about what we should do as we approach the holidays, as we approach this time of year and getting prepared for the new year. So we got a lot to talk about. Of course, we want to hear from you. So stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome, and peace, and welcome to the culture. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Welcome. Happy Thursday, folks. Happy Thursday. We got a lot to cover today. So let's jump right back. Let's just jump right into it. First and foremost, as we check in every Thursday, we have one of our top political analysts, let me get those words out, top political analysts to join us on a Thursday, Mr. Politics himself, Hassan Giordano. Let's talk about a number of political things, political stories that are developing at this point in time, folks. And you might be surprised just as much as I am. But here's the big story, of course. Brittney Griner is coming back home. Wow. I want to bring in Mr. Politics because I don't want to go too deep into it. But let's bring in my brother Hassan, Mr. Politics Giordano, as we are in the mix of what's going on in Washington. Peace, Hassan. How you doing, good brother? Oh, wait a minute. We got you on mute. You on mute?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but I can hear you now.
What's happening, Gab?
I'm good, man. I'm good. All right. First thing, you hit me with the text this morning, woke me up to it. Then I see a text from my producer, Joel. Then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Whoa. What happened? What's going on? And felt the whole world shake overnight. Apparently, a deal was made. Something was done. And our sister WNBA star, Brittney Griner, is coming back home. What?
Yeah.
All right, let me just say this. All right, we got to talk about this from a couple of different perspectives. One is Joe Biden must be having a hell of a year. Politically. He is having a hell of a year. He was able to stave off of the red wave that was expected for the national election. The Democrats got a win down in Georgia, which gives them a slight edge in terms of majority in the Senate. And now one of the big social and cultural topics of this year has been Brittney Griner. And unbeknownst to a lot of people, a deal was made and a swap was happening, and Brittney Griner is coming back home. What in the world happened?
Well, look, as much as people probably thought that nothing was really being done because we as the public didn't hear anything, they were grinding in that administration, that trying to work something out. Of course, they wanted Paul Whelan to be released as well, and of course that never happened. And so from what I'm being told is they were really torn between not having Paul released as well. There are two different categories. Remember, Paul Whelan in Russia's eyes was considered a spy, very serious charge in Russia, as opposed to Brittney Griner, who she just got caught in a geopolitical storm. That's all that was, right? I mean, that little bit of hashish oil, for a regular average person, probably would not have mounted the amount of time that she received. But of course, Putin understood who he had in his grasp. America understood that, but as much as they were willing to try to bring Brittney home because of the political pressure that was being put on her from here at home, they also didn't want to bring the Merchant of Death back to Russia for a basketball player. Point blank, bottom line. Now, if it was you and I, we would have never made it home off of something like this, right?
Right.
Brittney Griner was a political prisoner for all intents and purposes, but in America's political eyes, she did not meet the level of bringing home one of the most reputed arms dealers of our time. Point blank, period. I don't know if people know about this guy, but Victor Bout was a serious dude. Still is. Has a lot of That's why Russia has been fighting so hard to get him back home. Now, compare apples and oranges here. This man who has been incarcerated for upwards of a decade, over a decade now, of being convicted in 2011 by a New York jury on multiple counts that include conspiracy to kill Americans, was just released for someone who was caught with less than an ounce of hashish oil, right? That was the comparison that they were like, will this go over well? We know it's going to go over well for those who are supporters of Brittney Griner and things of that sort. But is this going to really go over well in, foreign relations? Because now other countries are going to say, oh, that's all it takes to get our people from America is to catch one of theirs over here doing something stupid, and we can possibly do this. So they really, really wanted Paul as well with Brittney to say, hey, at least we got somebody in our field, high profile, as well as Brittney Griner for Victor Bout. Because we do have a policy that America does not negotiate with terrorists. And so when you think about that they do not come off of, to a point now that you're willing to negotiate with countries to bring home American citizens of that stature, now you're going to start to see other countries around the world who don't like America start to strategically look at how do we capture, because that's what they will do, capture Americans in order to try to make a deal with the American government to release and free some of their own killers.
So how does this work out? Because we know that America is still prosecuting, Russia is still prosecuting a war in Ukraine. Russia even has gone on record to say that they're expecting to, they're preparing for the long term of this whole situation with Ukraine. And we know that the President Biden here has been saying some very tough words, putting sanctions on Russia. There's been a number of conversations and some issues around the natural resources of Russia as it relates to other countries in that part of the world, the neighboring countries of Russia. My point is, how does this situation pan out? How did it get to this point where at first it looked like nothing was going to be done? I remember reporting on this show where the president said, I will only talk to Putin if he comes to this G8, I think it was like the G7 summit, or there was a global summit. And he said that if Putin brings up the situation to me, that's the only way I will talk to him. There seemed to be no real pathway. So we get from that place, all of those things that had happened over these past 10 months, and then to this place, and which seemed like it was an overnight situation. It just seemed like it was just out of nowhere. Boom, Brittney is coming home.
Yeah, I think what I've been told by reporters on Capitol Hill who are closer to the situation than that more is going to be revealed of this swap, because it wasn't just a political prisoner swap. This, again, was a geopolitical strategic measure on both ends. Now, from what I've been told is Russian billionaires and million people who of great influence in Russia have been putting a lot of pressure on Putin to either retract from this war with Ukraine or at least build bridges to America. Because while these levies that America are putting on Russia don't seem heavy to us, like, okay, that's all you're going to do, that is a huge impact to those that it's affecting directly. Because mind you, these are people with billions of dollars. Now their pipeline has been frozen, and now they're looking crazy, and they're like, hold on, we can't go years doing this. So you're going to have to make some kind of concessions. Speaking to Putin, I've heard has made certain concessions, but Brittney Griner is not the last thing that America's going to get from this deal, from what I'm told. What comes out of it, I think more is to be revealed. And again, I don't think they're going to ever tell us this publicly, because these were a lot of backroom deals that look, at the end of the day, we're just not going to be privy to a lot of that information until possibly a later date. But this was more than Brittney Griner. That trust and believe, as much pressure that was being put on from the Griner family and supporters, the NBA and the WNBA, had it been Brittney Griner and that pressure alone, they could have withstood that, and they would have withstood that.
So you said that there might be something else. There's really something else on the table that Russia is aiming for.
Right. And America is supposed to be getting certain leverages and promises from Putin.
Yeah.
Not stopping the war, but in trying to kind of tamp down some of the things that Putin was planning on doing. And that's the promises. Now, on the flip end, of course, Putin, during a time of war, especially, wants his main guy. I mean, Victor Bout, people, I'm telling you, don't underestimate this guy. He has connections. They even made a movie about this guy. You saw that, but he has very well connected. And apparently him and Putin are close associates based off of, they have a mutual friend. I would call them that, a mutual friend. I don't even know if it goes that far, who is a very high figure in the Russian mob who Victor's connected to, that made this deal happen. Point blank, bottom line, make sure you make this happen. Now, of course, Putin wanted it. Again, America was on the line on, do we just give up Brittney Griner? And that's why I said it's not just about Brittney. There was other concessions that Putin made to make this deal happen. We'll find out more, I'm sure, in the coming days and weeks. But for right now, celebrate to Brittney and her family. I'm just, Farajii, a little torn because, again, if it was you or I or an average American, would they have gone out of their way the way they've done? And we know they wouldn't have to bring us home. And it's like, is she better than me or you? Plays basketball. That's a question we really got to start asking ourselves. If you don't negotiate with terrorists, don't negotiate with terrorists. Right.
Simple. That's a great point. That's a great point. I want to go to just really quickly. I know we got to take our first pause. I want to just get a couple of comments from our online culture crew as we're having this conversation. DeAndre C., you checked in very early, and I appreciate you. You said those who really follow the story knew what they were trying to do. I've said it countless times. This was not a black and white situation. She was a chess piece for Russia. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. I'm not. Hey, DeAndre, I'm shocked, bro. I am shocked that it even got to this point so early. I really expected it to happen maybe next year, but this is big. This is big. At least in the public relations space. And you and I, Hassan, we study public relations. This is what we do. In the eyes of the public, and I'm saying for black people especially, and for those supporters of Brittney, this is huge. This is huge. That President Biden was able to pull this off the way he did. Very quickly, let's go to Janae. You said not so happy about who was swapped, but sometimes you take a loss for a win. Come on, Janae.
But to your viewer's point, it is a chess move and it's a chess game, and we just gave up a rook, if not a bishop, for a pawn. Woo! Right now, I don't know what else going into the deal, so I can't, really quantify who made out in this.
Yeah.
But given off of what we know at this point, that was a bad deal for America. Bottom line, I'm telling you right now, Victor Bout will be a menace to America moving forward. This guy's not just going to all of a sudden wipe his hands clean of crime, go back over there and not be loyal to the people who made him who he is, right? Now, that's not to knock Brittney. I would hope nobody is incarcerated for bull crap like that. But again, you went into a situation knowing it wasn't like this stuff was planted. Again, you shouldn't have got 9 years for it. But we're giving up somebody who was convicted on multiple counts of trying to kill Americans, who is known by federal agencies and the international community as someone who is responsible for hundreds of thousands of deaths across this globe. You're giving that up for Brittney Griner. Something there. That's why something else has to be at play. And the reports I've gotten, there is some other things. Whether we see it or not in the coming days or weeks, is still yet to be seen.
And one of our viewers, Webb, checked in and said she is an entertainer and he is the most prolific weapons dealer in the last 30 years.
Case in point.
Wow. Hey,
look, you ain't got to say no more after that.
Yes, bro, please. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue to have the conversation about what's going on in the world of politics with Mr. Politics himself. But first, I want to say welcome, and I hope I'm not. I wish we could just talk to her, but to her and to Brittney's family and to her family, we want to say welcome home, Brittney. This is amazing. And I know that there are some other things at play here. But from the culture, we have been talking about this over these past few months. We have been staying on top of this story. And so, this is a very, very happy ending to a very unfortunate situation. So we just want to say welcome home. And Brittney, I'm looking forward to possibly getting a conversation with you, whatever the case may be. Even if we never talk, just know that our thoughts and prayers has been with you. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue the conversation and being in the mix with Mr. Politics Hassan Giordano. Let's continue to take your comments, and let's continue to have the conversations about what's happening politically. Let's also talk about the other breaking news story, which is that the House has officially passed the same-sex and interracial marriage bill that moves forward to President Biden for his signature and approval, protecting those institutions, the institution of marriage between two same-sex individuals and interracial folks. So that is going to be protected by the president. Another win for the Biden-Harris administration. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Trump and more. So stay with us. A lot to get to in the next segment of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We have been chatting with Mr. Politics himself, Hassan Giordano, as we've been talking about the big story that has gotten everyone's attention, the return of WNBA superstar Brittney Griner, who was in Russia, and she was sentenced to be there for a little bit over 9 years. But after some deal-making happened from the Biden administration to the Putin administration in Russia, she was finally able to come home. I want to share with you very quickly what the president had to say as he made this major announcement earlier today from the White House. Check this out.
Well, good morning, folks, and it is a good morning. Moments ago, standing together with her wife, Sherelle, in the Oval Office, I spoke with Brittney Griner. She's safe. She's on a plane. She's on her way home. After months of being unjustly detained in Russia, held under intolerable circumstances, Brittney will soon be back in the arms of her loved ones, and she should have been there all along. This is a day we've worked toward for a long time. We never stopped pushing for her release. It took painstaking and intense negotiations, and I want to thank all the hardworking public servants across my administration who worked tirelessly to secure her release. I also want to thank the UAE for helping us facilitate Brittney's return, because that's where she landed. These past few months have been hell for Brittney and for Charlie and her entire family and all her teammates back home. People all across the country have learned about Brittney's story, advocated for her release, stood with her throughout this terrible ordeal. And I know that support meant a lot to her family. I'm glad to be able to say that Brittney's in good spirits. She's relieved to finally be heading home. And the fact remains that she's lost months of her life, experienced the needless trauma. She deserves space, privacy, and time with her loved ones to recover and heal from her time being wrongfully detained. Brittney is an incomparable athlete, a two-time Olympic gold medalist for Team USA. She endured mistreatment and a show trial in Russia with characteristic grit and incredible dignity. She represents the best about America. It is across the board, everything about her. She wrote to me back in July. She didn't ask for special treatment, even though we've been working on a release from the day one. She requested a simple quote, "Please don't forget about me and the other American detainees. Please do all you can to bring us home." We never forgot about Brittney. We've not forgotten about Paul Whelan, who's been unjustly detained in Russia for years. This was not a choice of which American to bring home. We brought home Trevor Reed when we had a chance earlier this year. Sadly, for totally illegitimate reasons, Russia is treating Paul's case differently than Brittney's. And while we have not yet succeeded in securing Paul's release, we are not giving up. We will never give up. We remain in close touch with Paul's family, the Whelan family, and my thoughts and prayers are with them today. They have to have such mixed emotions today. And we'll keep negotiating in good faith for Paul's release. I guarantee that. I say that to the family. I guarantee you. And I urge Russia to do the same to ensure that Paul's health and humane treatment maintained until we are able to bring him home. I don't want any American to sit wrongfully detained and one extra day if we can bring that person home. My administration has now brought home dozens of Americans who were wrongfully detained or held hostage abroad, many of whom had been held since before I took office. And today, we also remember the other Americans that are being held hostage and wrongfully detained in Russia or anywhere else in the world. Reuniting this Americans with their loved ones remains a priority for my administration, every person in my administration involved in this. We're going to continue to work to bring home every American who continues to endure such an injustice. We also want to prevent any more American families from suffering this pain and separation. And I strongly urge all Americans to take precautions, including reviewing the State Department's travel advisories before they travel overseas, which now includes warnings about the risk of being wrongfully detained by a foreign government. Make no mistake about it, this work is not easy. Negotiations are always difficult. There are never any guarantees, but it's my job as President of the United States to make the hard calls and protect American citizens everywhere in the world, anywhere in the world. And I'm proud that today we have made one more family whole again.
That was President Biden earlier this morning talking about the release of Brittney Griner. Let me go back to Hassan Giordano, Mr. Politics. Hassan? I guess it's been said, right? I mean, nothing else to say about the situation, right?
Well, my thing is this, though, and it really isn't. My only question is this. If you were willing to give up Victor Bout for Brittney Griner, and if there was something else added, forgive me, we don't know what it is, so I can't speak to that. But if we're taking you at face value that you were willing to give up the most renowned arms dealer of our lifetime for Brittney Griner, I can only imagine what Russia wants for Paul Whelan, because in their eyes, he was an American spy, right? He was basically, to them, a double agent. They're never going to let him go unless you give up 3 Victor Bouts. And I'm not sure how much America is willing to give up. So for the president to sit there and talk about the Whelan family, or talk about that we're not going to give up, you're going to have to give up a whole lot. Yeah, you might not never give up, but you won't give something up if you think you're going to bring him home. You know, if you're giving up Victor Bout for Brittney Griner.
So here, DeAndre checked in also. He said that a lot of DeAndre CA said a lot of opponents to this move are labeling her release as a political move for the Democrats to garner more LGBTQ plus and Black support. He said, asked the question, what are you and your panelists' thoughts on that? So I'm gonna share with you. Do you feel like this was a ploy, for lack of a better word, you know, to garner more votes from Black folks and from those from the LGBTQIA community?
I think it started that conversation, and I think that's probably why she got the level of that conversation of the president, because of that very reason. Look, you had multiple fronts here. I think the LGBT community, which is very strong in its advocacy, was a huge part of that. On the other end, you also had the WNBA and the NBA commissioner and a lot of these superstars who have a lot of money and who have access to these politicians, including the president, who were also sounding off about freeing her. And then you had the news media on top of that, compounding all of that. So it was a perfect storm for Brittney Griner to be able to put her at that level. Because again, I'm talking about levels. You're talking about international deals being made for international prisoners, right? Prisoners of war in many aspects. Victor Bout is up here in that aspect. Brittney Griner's not even on the map. But when you put those type of advocacy groups together, LGBT, very rich NBA and influential NBA players, donors, and others, with the media on top of it, yes, it was a perfect. Does it do well for Democrats in that community? Absolutely. But I think the bigger ploy, and that's all it is this new Defensive Marriage Act that was passed. That actually began as nothing but a messaging exercise for Democrats. It turned out to be historic legislation that was passed, but that was nothing but an exercise ahead of the midterm elections that Democrats wanted to use it as a ploy against Republicans, who they knew on social issues like this, they would have not fared well amongst voters.
Wow. And as we're having this conversation, and I'm reading some of the comments in our chat on YouTube and Facebook, and folks, y'all can definitely jump in the chat and we'll try to highlight some of your comments as well. But as I'm reading it, it's like there is a sense of mixed reviews about this situation. You know what I mean? Like people wanted to see Brittney Griner home. That's understood, right? But the context in which she was brought home under these circumstances, outside of the original deal, which was to bring her and Paul Whelan home. Now the and then now it's like people are starting to have some second thoughts, and I want us to at least try to key in on the fact that this wasn't, as much as this is, you know, we talked about Brittney making the wrong decisions and everything. The fact is that we wanted the sister home, right? Now, America often puts itself in these conundrums, political conundrums, right? When dealing with other countries. So let's have just a brief moment, Hassan, before we take our next pause. Like just a quick moment. Like, can you speak to that sentiment that some people might feel like this was a bad deal for the country, even though this is exactly what we called for Brittney and her family to have happen?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I understand. I was looking at social media comments today about it throughout the day, and it breaks my heart that many people don't really know what actually went on. They're looking at it from secondhand or third-hand stories that were being given to them, and then others are just, you know, kind of upset. And good, look, I get it, because again, I go back to this. If it was you and I, even if it was Roland Martin, way bigger than you and I, right? If it was Roland Martin, Roland would be right over there in prison, and there wouldn't be a conversation being had about that, right?
Right.
Because he doesn't fit in those cute little boxes. Period.
Right. The demographics of it.
Exactly. And so that's what I think that a lot of people are upset about. Is it's not about Brittney. They would love for her and so many others to be at home. Yeah. It's okay. She was wrong. She should never have gotten that type of time, but okay. Right. We don't control that criminal justice system. But at the end of the day, was America right in giving up such an individual for which essentially is a PR move that would turn out to be a very high-priced PR move? And I think that people are just really torn at this moment. And it has nothing to do with Brittney Griner. I think
I hear that, and I agree with you. I agree with you. It's just that as much as it has nothing to do with Brittney Griner, it has everything to do with Brittney Griner. Look, I got to take another quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue our conversation with Mr. Politics Hassan Giordano as we are in the mix. Also, we'll have conversations about the same-sex marriage and interracial marriage bill that was passed by the House, and so much more. So stay with us, folks. Continue to post your comments, and let's continue to have the conversation right here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We're having a conversation in the mix with Mr. Politics Hassan Giordano, folks, as we've been talking about the release of Brittney Griner. This is very, very interesting to see some of the feedback about this situation. And you know, let's bring Hassan back into the frame here. Hassan, I'm wondering, like, look, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I never heard of Victor Bout. Now I know that Nicolas Cage played him in a movie and all of those things, but you know, of course, he's an arms dealer. He's a behind the scenes guy. You know, unless you study geopolitics, then you would know something about him. But it is very interesting to see that and I'm saying Black folks are saying the Merchant of Death. This is very interesting. Mm-hmm. Like what I mean, and I don't know if you know this. I don't know if we can even have this part of the conversation in terms of could there have been an alternative person, another person that Russia would have had, interest in besides their number one arms dealer in order to make this deal happen? I don't know. But it's interesting that people are like, well, this is not going to be good for America and the rest of the world. And it's like, but I don't know what could have been done. I don't know if there's a right or wrong way on how to handle the situation, Hassan.
No. And look, again, see, people are looking at it as apples and oranges. It's like Saddam Hussein being swapped out for LeBron James, right? Like, what? Are you crazy? But again, I want to caution, because from what I've heard from insiders who are a lot closer to this story than I am on Capitol Hill, that more is to come, that it was not just a straight prisoner swap, that America got certain concessions from Putin that will go a long way in the war in Ukraine, as well as some other things that are going on geopolitically, right? And if that's the case, then this may have worked out in an equal favor. But from the outside and looking in, not knowing any of that, which we may not know at all, because it's just not our, we're down here on the intelligence poll. They're way up there. But if they got certain concessions that may have made America safer in the long run, God bless them. But for a swap, just the prisoner swap, it was not the greatest move at all.
It was apples and oranges.
Yeah, yeah.
Or was it like apples and then the fruit salad?
Or sour apples and red apples.
He was like apples and the whole market. You know what I'm saying?
And see, I want people to understand it's easy for us. They say hindsight in 2020, right?
Right.
And it's easy for us to criticize and look at it. It's a lot harder when you are the president of the United States, or you are the governor or the mayor, and you have to make these hard, tough decisions and these negotiations. So it's easy to say what we're saying now, kind of being critical of, but when you're in that moment and you have all this pressure from this person's family, who you meet with on a regular basis, and you feel for them, and you got, again, as one of your callers said, this community being influential in this community, and you're feeling that pressure and you're having those negotiations, you want to do what's right. And so at the end of the day, again, I can't speak to everything that went into the deal other than what we're seeing. And at the end of the day, if I'm president, I don't make that deal just for that. You're going to give me Paul. Yeah.
Right. Here's what I'm going to say as we wrap up this part of the discussion, Hassan. If I were Brittney, I would not want to hear somebody say you shouldn't have been brought home for the merchant of death.
Right.
Right. So I think for us as Black folks in this country, that we should make sure that Brittney feels welcome, that she is back home, that she was able to get through this ordeal in the way that she got through it, and just leave it at that. You know what I'm saying? America has to make up her bed in so many different parts of this world that the last thing is that we want to blame a Black woman who was imprisoned unjustifiably. We want to blame her for some deaths that a white male caused for the past 30 years. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to put that on her doorstep. She was caught up in a situation. Yes, she made the decision. Yes, she made a mistake. But I'm saying essentially she was caught up in a political situation that got heated, especially once Russia started to invade Ukraine. So I just don't want her to feel like we are not happy that she's back at home.
And especially
with her family.
And especially Farajii, she never, if you listen to the president and you listen to the accounts from her wife, when she made the plea to the president, it wasn't about her. She said, look, I'm not making it about me. If you can't, cool. If you can get me, get all the rest of these Americans.
Yeah, she did say that. And that's what President Biden said. That's what she wrote to him.
It wasn't about her. Like she wouldn't have wanted to stay. But if he could have got more, I know Brittney, I would assume. I can't say I know because I don't know her. But I think that she would have said, okay, I'll stay. But if you can get Paul and these other people that I've met along the way that are unjustifiably detained, please, Mr. President, do that.
Every case is different.
Yeah.
Paul's different. Brittney's case was different. Every case was different. Sometimes you got to go for that low-hanging fruit to get some things done. Paul Whelan's case is a reason why for the past few years, under various presidential administrations in this country, he has not been able to be brought home. Mm-hmm. There's a reason for that, folks. So every case is different. Again, we're happy to have our sister back home. Very quickly, Hassan, as we talk about other things, let's talk a little bit about this House bill being passed, this same-sex interracial marriage bill that was just passed. The House passed it. It was already expected to pass anyway because of the Democrats, where the Democrats are with the numbers in the House. But now it's going to go to President Biden's desk. We know he's going to sign off on it. This was a few weeks ago. It seemed like this bill was in limbo. Now we're at this point. Another win for the Democrats, right? Yes or no?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think this is one of their bigger wins. And here's the ironic part, and I said this earlier. This started as nothing but a messaging exercise by Democrats for coming for the midterms. They knew they had to deal with social issues to try to drive the voters home to make sure that they win across the board. And so Democrats have brought this up last year as a messaging exercise. They didn't have there was nobody that was a part of this that thought that this was actually going to get done. They're like, yeah, right. We know we'll never get this done. But then all of a sudden, almost 50, about 47 House Republicans signed on to it. And it shocked many of them because it was like, oh, really? Now it's got a little bit of legs. And it started as a Defense of Marriage Act. I think now they're calling it the Respect for Marriage Act.
Yeah, the Respect for Marriage Act, yeah.
But I'm going to tell you what changed that all is as soon as the Supreme Court struck down Roe v. Wade, and in his opinion, Justice Clarence Thomas talked about attacking precedent, things like interracial marriage.
Yep.
Because what had happened was the House had this message, and it would have never gotten through the Senate. But what had happened, certain Republican donors, very influential donors, started calling senators to say, you need to get on board with this. And they were, I don't know. When he made that message about interracial marriage, that turned the tables. That's why the name changed on the legislation. And that's why all of a sudden you saw a greater push in the Senate for them to get the 10 votes that they needed. They ended up getting 12, got passed, and we saw the vote come out of the House today. I think it was
258 to 169.
That is huge for a House to have gay marriage included with interracial marriage. If that never happened, if Roe v. Wade was not overturned and or the bigger issue, Justice Clarence Thomas didn't run his mouth in that opinion, we probably would have never been where we're at today in this bill being passed. But
can we say he saved the bill?
Oh yeah, he saved the. I'm telling you, Democrats now have some. See, before they would have said, "Hey, Democrats or independents, see what they did with Roe v. Wade. They'll do this with other things," and you'd be like, "Yeah, maybe, maybe not." But with something that's in writing from one of the justices to say, "Oh yeah, we're looking at all this precedent that you thought was etched in the stone. Now we're going to take another look at it." Now it gives them something real to look at, and you're like, "Oh, yeah, you know how many interracial marriages are in this country?" Like they're like, "Oh no, you're not going to be able to make that illegal." So now this puts it constitutionally mandated, so the courts can't now intervene later on to say interracial marriage and interrupt that like the way they did Roe v. Wade and the abortion laws. So I'm telling you, that gave a huge boost, and I think. And what I've heard when he did that, a lot of Republicans were very upset that he made that opinion. In fact, the majority did not want him to do that. That's why he did a separate opinion outside of the majority opinion.
Right.
Because they didn't want that included. They knew what that was going to do. And he wanted to kind of rub their nose in the fact of them overriding Roe v. Wade and the power that this new court has. And it ended up propelling Democrats to victory. This November, it ended up propelling this legislation to passage. As of today, President's waiting. He can't wait. He said as soon as it hits the White House, he's putting pen to paper, no matter what he's doing. He's going to rush to the White House to make sure that gets done and gets signed into law. So I think, yeah, he actually was the greatest blessing Democrats could have ever asked for or hoped for in 2022.
That may not have happened in October, but it was definitely the surprise that they needed to make something happen. There it is, folks. Bill to protect same-sex marriage rights clears Congress. The House gives final approval to this, and it was big. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, I'm going to pick Hassan's brain about President Trump's prospects, as it looks like he's getting dimmer just from the fact that his Trump organization found guilty of fraudulent activity. His man down in Georgia was kicked back home to Texas. And now you just don't have that much power and influence. So we're going to talk a little bit about 2024 as we have this conversation and staying in the mix with Mr. Politics. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
All right, folks, we are still in the mix with Mr. Politics, Hassan Giordano, getting his analysis on some big political stories. Continue to join the conversation when you can. Join us in the chat. And for those who are just welcoming to just first time tuning in, welcome to The Culture. We got a lot of first time watchers today, so I'm very, very excited to have all of these new eyes on the discussions, and more importantly, love to hear more from you. So again, post your comments in our chat, and then we'll continue to do our part to get them highlighted. All right, Hassan, we got a few moments left with you, bro, and I always appreciate your insight and your analysis on things. For President Trump, he's not having the best week. Worst week ever.
That's an understatement.
That's an understatement. He's getting hit from the Trump Organization, 2 of his companies, even though he wasn't found guilty of fraudulent activity. His companies were companies that bear his name, right? Were found guilty this week. Also, Herschel Walker, one of his main guys, biggest supporters, he lost. It was a close one, to say the least, but he lost. And now, what's the prospect? What does 2024 shape up to be, especially for the GOP?
Well, Farajii, I don't think I've ever witnessed a worse post-presidential announcement for any candidate in the history of politics as for Donald Trump since he announced he was running for president. He gets caught meeting with Kanye and an anti-Semite white supremacist on his own grounds at Mar-a-Lago. So it's not like, oh, I just met him, on the street in New York and I didn't know who they were. You knew exactly who they were. Then he tries to walk that back. And as you said, Herschel Walker gets slapped upside his head. Many Republicans were already upset at the outcomes of November in the midterm general elections, because what we saw is something we haven't saw in modern history in politics, is that the party who controls the White House during the first midterms, Democrats did not lose one seat that they were up for re-election. And then the one seat that was open, they took back Pennsylvania. And many Republicans blamed Donald Trump for that, because it was his candidates that he endorsed that came out so well in the primaries that got their butts whipped in the general election, including Herschel Walker, who he went all in for. There was many Republican operatives who wanted to swap out a better candidate than Herschel Walker in Georgia, and it was Donald Trump himself who kept them off at bay. So Herschel Walker is attached to Donald Trump for the rest of his life. We saw what happened there. We saw what happened with the Trump Organization. That money, that $1.7 million off the books that they were convicted of, now they got to pay up to $1.6 million in fees. I think it's like $25,000 for each case.
Right.
Like $2,000 for other ones.
But that's chump change, though. We talked about, we had another, it's chump change, $1.6 million.
Look, to him, he's worth $3.2 billion right now, right? So yeah, that may be chump change. Yeah. Ford's just at $3.2 billion. So yeah, that may be chump change, but guess what? Now the Washington Post just reported that the Justice Department served subpoenas to Arizona, Michigan, and Wisconsin as a part of a bigger investigation into Trump's efforts to reverse the results of 2020 in their elections. And that could be criminal jeopardy that he's facing right there. I mean, it's just like day after day, week after week, Donald Trump just keeps getting hit upside the head. And again, and I'm going to say it again, I know he made his little announcement, but I'm going to remain what I've told you from day one. Donald Trump will not run for president of the United States in 2024. He's going to understand that he cannot win. This time, he can't use the whole "you ripped me off" excuse anymore, that we really won, because he's going to lose in the Republican primary. He won't even get out of the primary. I'm telling you, he's not going to run. He's going to use this stuff to eventually kind of back away. He's going to try to crown the winner, who I think at this point probably would have to be Ron DeSantis as the front runner.
Right.
And he's going to try to make himself the same influential member of the Republican Party as he has been, because trust and believe, his star has been dull over these past few weeks, and it's going to get even worse as we go into the new year, because you have multiple investigations and or lawsuits that are coming at him.
That's the part. That part. That part. You got to get through these investigations. Yeah. It was also reported that his own team was able to get their hands on some new classified documents that they found in a Florida storage unit as part of that larger pack of documents that was requested by the National Archives and the Justice Department. Y'all remember the document gate that Trump has been embroiled in for the past year and a half. So now they found some more documents that was just stored up. I mean, it just doesn't seem like this guy is getting it. And I'm wondering, Hassan, as the GOP is trying to figure out who the hell they are, how they're going to rebound from all of these hits that they're taking right now. You know, we talk about Ron DeSantis. Let's talk about the Democrats' response, because the Democrats do have some momentum at this point for 2024. And I don't think that we should, you know, I don't know if we should be pushing for a black candidate, or if there's somebody else in the peripheral that we need to keep our eyes on.
Yeah, if I would like to see a Stacey Abrams kind of push a
run for president.
No, not run for president.
Oh.
But I think that she is the type of individual that can be the leader, the face of a political movement for African Americans, right? She fits that profile. You don't want her as the chair of the DNC. Trust to believe that's like the graveyard of politics. Nobody wants to be chair of the DNC, right? And they're going to try to conform her. That's not who she is. You let her be who she is, because I'm going to tell you something. Her political chances in Georgia are over. I mean, for all intents and purposes, I've heard that she's going to try to mount another race in 4 years. Obviously, it's term limited. The governor down there now. But take this as an opportunity to go national and be able, her and Keisha Bottoms from Atlanta, that was former mayor, to be able to go across the country, raise money for African Americans. We should. It's about time we as people started to put up our own money and our own candidates to say, hey, this is who we want. Because I'm going to tell you something. As damaged as the Republican Party is right now, Democrats ain't faring that well. Don't get it twisted. They barely survived this midterm elections.
Yeah.
But Joe Biden is not the most positive. He's not going to make me jump up out of my house and go knock on doors or make phone calls or do anything to get him reelected. So at this point, Democrats need to take a step back and say, we got them on the ropes. What's the knockout punch? And I really don't think Joe Biden in 2024 is the knockout punch. And the sad part is neither is Kamala Harris. So the question is, who is that knockout punch? And can the Democrats be able to get them through, past the sitting Democrat, through the Democratic nominating committee, and become president of the United States? It's a lot to ask for in the next 18 months.
There's a lot to ask for. My man, Hassan Giordano, you can check him out each and every Thursday here on The Culture with his new segment, In the Mix with Mr. Politics, right now. And Hassan, your analysis is always on point as usual, brother, but you gave us some more stuff for us to think about. But how can folks learn more about the work that you're doing in the DMV?
Yep, they can go DMV Daily on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter. Put in hashtag Mr. Politics. All my personal stuff will pop up as well.
There it is right there. Hassan Giordano is holding it down in the political space. As always, brother, thank you so much. Let's go Ravens.
That's right, baby.
All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's check in and let's talk about healthcare affordability. Did you know that the state of emergency that was placed on the United States is because of COVID is going to be ending soon? And they're expecting it's going to end in April. And there are a lot of conversations right now about, making sure that Americans have Medicare and the affordable health insurance to deal with this new transition. So we're going to check in with Christine Groh and when we come back to talk to us about how do we make the best choices, the best decision for healthcare. It's not the most sexiest conversation, but it is so necessary and is so informative. So we're going to have that discussion up next. And later on, we're going to talk a little bit about health and wellness. Speaking of healthcare, we're going to talk about health and wellness and why it's important for us to get our minds right, not just for the new year, but just for life, that it is absolutely important for us to think differently about how we can take care of ourselves. So that conversation is also coming up in the next hour. So stay with us. All of that and a whole lot more will be coming up right here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network. We'll see you soon.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. This is our second hour. If you missed the first hour, make sure you check us out in the replay. Make sure y'all go to blackstarnetwork.com. Continue to show your thought, to share the content, but most importantly, show your support. And you can definitely check us out at blackstarnetwork.com to check out the first hour and all of the past shows we have done here on The Culture. Now, we wanted to have a conversation about something I think is very, very important. I love having these discussions because they inform people so much about what's going on. And I'm talking about finding affordable health care in the midst of all of this other stuff that we may be experiencing. Yes, we talked about inflation. Yes, we could talk about the state of social issues and all of those things. But guess what? Guess what's really important? Your health and being covered. And so I'm so excited to have my next guest joining us today, Christine Grow, who serves as the Senior Vice President of Communications for AHIP. And they are an organization that looks at that works with healthcare providers and to see better ways to make sure that people can get access to affordable healthcare, able to take care of themselves, make sure that the costs aren't just damaging to their budgets and to their pockets. And so we're so happy to have Christine joining us today. Christine, good afternoon and welcome to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. How are you this afternoon?
I'm very well, sir. How are you this afternoon?
I am good. Let me see here. Now let's and now Christine, just place to turn your camera on.
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble with my set.
Okay, no problem. We will work with you. Here's the thing, Christine. I want to give people some context as to why we're having this conversation today. And here's why, folks. Take a look at this, just some of the data around this issue of finding affordable health care. Here, take a look, folks. I want to put this first quote up on the screen, and Keenan, if we can put this quote on the screen. According to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, take a look, folks. In the first 6 months of 2022, nationwide, over 13,417,626 people are enrolled in marketplace plans. Of those, 12 million, a little bit over 12 million, 106,947 get a tax credit, which is about 90% of participants. Now, nationwide, the average monthly premium was $585.05. Let me just say this again. Oh my gosh. The average monthly premium was $585.05. The average subsidy was $506.99. And the end premium was $127.59 on average, showing just how available the subsidies and tax credits are and how helpful they are for purchasing insurance on the individual market, and why signing up now is very, very important. Now, folks, I want to talk to you as my culture crew. I want to get your take on this because some of you may work in the healthcare field, some of you may, deal with insurance and all of these things. And one of the things that I think that we need to advocate, especially within the Black community, I've seen this time and time again. And now this is going to go more towards the life insurance side and not just the health insurance side. But I'm a huge advocate. Personally, I have a life insurance policy for myself and family. But we don't have enough conversations about how to stay covered, whether you're talking about being ill or whether you're talking about a death in the family. We're just not having these conversations. Now, I know individually, each one of us that are tuned in, I know, Culture Crew, that you understand the importance of it. But we just don't seem to have these conversations about how to make sure that we can get ourselves covered outside of if you work for a particular job that offers health insurance, then you take advantage of it. But it's still one of those conversations that we just don't have too often, and especially for the next generation. I'm thinking about those who are 19, 20, 21. You know, some of the coverage say, oh, you can stay on my coverage. You can stay on my plan until, until a certain age. But there just not seems to be enough conversation. And so for me, for us to have a discussion about healthcare, for us to understand the ever-growing, evolving dynamics of finding affordable healthcare that fits our health needs as well as our pockets, is a very, very real situation. Let me just share with you, and I want to pull this up because I think that this is the other part of it, and we're going to try to get Christine back into the mix here. But this is something that I thought was really, really interesting, dealing with the fact that there are a large number of Americans, they say about 62 to 67% of Americans choose not to go and navigate through the spaces of healthcare because it's so stressful. That if you have a healthcare program, if you're with your healthcare, say through your job or something, and say you transition from that job to go to this job, and if you have the opportunity, the option to stay with your healthcare from that previous job, you may not want to seek out new healthcare coverage, right? So I want to, and I want to Keena let me know when we can bring Christine back into the mix here. And then we can have this discussion. But I think that it speaks volumes about where we are now. Here's the other thing: many of you know that trying to navigate through this, what they call this individual marketplace of finding the best insurance for you and your family, can be highly stressful. It can be confusing, and it requires you to have an understanding of how things work. And so this is why I wanted to have this conversation. This is why that I wanted to have this. All right, let me just throw another quote up here very quickly. And as we have here, take a look at this, folks. Insurers hope to soften, this came from Bloomberg Law. Insurers hope to soften the financial hit from the expected end of the COVID-19 health emergency next year by steering some of their departing Medicaid enrollees into their individual marketplace plans. You have major insurance companies are trying to figure out how they can get some of these individuals out of the whole COVID space back into an individual market plans. That's because millions of their Medicaid managed care enrollees will no longer qualify for Medicaid once the public health emergency of COVID is lifted and the federal requirement for continuous Medicaid enrollment ends. Once the emergency ends, which could happen as early as April 2023, about 15 million people are expected to lose Medicaid coverage, according to Health and Human Services Department estimates. That includes about 6.8 million who will, quote, churn in and out of Medicaid eligibility, and 8.2 million others who will likely exceed program income limits over the long term. Let me go to Christine Grow, and let's get his thoughts on this. Christine, are you with us now?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Awesome. Christine, let's talk about the work that you do with AHIP, the work that AHIP does in terms of helping the Americans to navigate through this. And I have to ask, Christine, why is it so damn hard? Why is it so hard to find good, affordable healthcare coverage in this country?
Yeah, I think you ask a really good question. So AHIP is an association that represents health insurance providers that provide plans to Americans all across the nation. We have a presence in Washington, D.C. and in all 50 states, and we advocate for policies to make healthcare coverage more affordable and accessible for everyone. So when you talk about the high costs of healthcare, you're absolutely right. We agree with you. Healthcare costs are driven by the underlying costs of what hospitals and healthcare systems charge, what prescription drug companies are charging, and all the very high costs that we work every day to negotiate down so that those costs are more affordable for every single person that we serve.
I'm read here. Talk to us a little bit, Christine, about this navigating through this process. I just pulled up this piece from Bloomberg Law that said that that a lot of people, 15 million Americans, are going to be without the necessary health care because of the ending of the public health emergency that stemmed from COVID-19, and they're expecting that to happen as around April 2023. First and foremost, is that the time frame that folks should be looking at or using to determine where they need to go to find healthcare coverage?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things that we need to think about. For those who are receiving their health care coverage through Medicaid right now, you were correct. During COVID-19, Medicaid was expanded to allow more people to receive coverage because, especially during a pandemic, you want to make sure that everyone has coverage so they can get their care that they need. We are waiting to see when the federal government is going to end the public health emergency and what that means for Medicaid expansion that happened as a result of the pandemic. We haven't quite received exactly what that means yet. And so we and the American people are all waiting for that. And we should receive that early next year. But I think, in the meantime, for those people who do not have coverage either through a job or through Medicaid and have to buy their own coverage themselves, this is actually the time to think about coverage and to get coverage through the individual market, because there's a deadline of December 15th coming up. If you want to have your coverage start on January 1, you really need to have that coverage decided by December 15th of this year.
So by December 15th, we're talking about next week.
That's right. Yes, it's coming up very quickly. So there's a lot of good news with this, though. As you noted, one of the things that Congress did earlier this year is they extended the tax credits and subsidies that people can get to help make their premiums more affordable. So as people are looking at what those premiums cost, you can go to the federal government's website at healthcare.gov and enter some financial information to see how much much of the tax credits and subsidies you qualify for. And that can make it much, much more affordable for you. So as you note, those who buy their own coverage, about 90% of them are eligible for some sort of tax credit or support.
Right. We saw, and that's one of the other things that we talked about is the subsidies, the tax credit. 90% of folks are eligible for that. But it still is a hard space to navigate. Christine, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to continue to have this conversation, and I'm going to invite my online culture crew to share their thoughts and their questions with you as we have this discussion of finding affordable healthcare. Folks, join us in the conversation and make sure you post your comments in our YouTube or the chat spaces, wherever we are streaming right now. Make sure you join us, and let's have a more robust discussion about the importance of finding affordable health care. And let's pick Christine's brain a little bit more around this issue. So, folks, we'll have that conversation and a whole lot more on the other side. But stay with us. You're tuned into The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We have been talking about finding affordable health care. We've been checking in with the Senior Vice President of Communication for AHIP, Ms. Christine Grow, to talk to us about what we can do to get ourselves covered before necessary deadlines, enrollment deadlines, and more importantly, the importance of coverage, especially now as we are looking to on a tail end of the pandemic, how so many healthcare providers are now going to be challenged with trying to get individuals insured before the ending of that public health emergency mandate that was done. Take a look. Insurers are driver to drive Medicaid customers to Obamacare as COVID eases. And if you haven't had a chance to check out or at least look at what your state, your respective states are doing around this issue. Make sure you do so. And Christine, you gave a great a piece of resource in how people can find out, because we're talking to the whole country. So where can people go? What's the main resource that people can go to see where, how their state is going to be handling this transition?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So if you receive your coverage through Medicaid today, it's going to be important to keep a close eye on your mail, or however you get information from the Medicaid program. You will likely receive something from the state that asks you a few questions to see if you requalify for the program. And we're encouraging everyone to engage in that process, because if you don't engage, unfortunately, that may by default mean that you lose your coverage automatically. Our goal is we don't want anybody to lose coverage. We want everyone to receive coverage that's right for them. So please do engage in the process. You should receive a lot of communications from the state that you're in, and there's a whole lot more to come in the coming months, I can tell you that.
So, Christine, a lot of people, I mean, we're at this political space in this state, in this country. We're at, there are a number of health-related disparities that continue to exist in this country. And people are wondering, why hasn't America kind of stepped up and kind of evolved when it comes to healthcare? Why haven't we been, having some more, I think, more important conversations around free healthcare, or conversations around, making sure that healthcare is affordable across the board, regardless of your status, of where you live, regardless of of any of those identifying factors. Do you foresee that the industry is going to kind of, at least catch up to where the public sentiment is about this issue?
I think there's a lot of really great work that's happening right now, both in the public sector as well as in the private market, and both of them working together, because there are parts of the American healthcare system that work very, very well, and there are parts that can be made better. And we're very focused on those parts that can be made better. You talked earlier about the Medicaid program is a very important safety net for our society. And there's a lot of innovation, a lot of work that's going on there to help people not just get access to care when they're sick, but also to help them get access to healthy foods, help them get transportation to their doctor or their pharmacy, help them stay with their programs to help them manage their chronic conditions so they can get healthier faster and stay healthier longer. There's a lot of really great work that we just need to keep building on and keep pushing and keep working with the leaders in our communities so that they can tell us what they need and what they think will work best for them.
Absolutely. The order, I'm going to go to some of the comments from our viewers here today, Christine. So many people have been checking in because this is a real big issue, even though, like I said, it's not the sexiest of things to talk about when you're talking about, a whole bunch. You could talk about a whole lot of other things as it relates to the culture, but it's important things. These are informative, important things that we need to talk about. The Order of the Bees, you checked in and you said we are the only country in the developed world that doesn't have comprehensive health care for their citizens, is absolutely shameful and inhumane. That's the public sentiment that we often hear. And I know that as one who works in the industry, you hear that a lot as well too, Christine.
I think there are people that are very frustrated with the healthcare system. We also hear from a lot of people who like the health care that they have and the coverage that they have. So we want to make sure that in the process of making coverage and care better, that we don't break what people really like and what's working for them. I think, when you look at the Affordable Care Act and when that went into effect, one key goal of that law was to ensure that everyone has access to some coverage that they can choose, that they can have some personal control over, that they like. We certainly support all of that. The Affordable Care Act had a lot of protections in it for patients and consumers to make sure that they're not shut out of coverage, regardless of what their health conditions might be. We certainly support those protections. And I think it's just, continuing to build on that. Today, I think the biggest issue, as you mentioned earlier, is really this affordability question, especially when you talk about very expensive brand name drugs that don't have any competition, which mean the prices go up. When you talk about hospitals and health systems that may be charging very high costs that we may not know exactly what's going into those very high costs, and maybe they can be brought down for the patients. We on the health insurance side are always negotiating with the providers and the hospitals and the pharmaceutical companies to bring those prices down. What we think is really needed is more competition to bring those players to the table so they're willing to negotiate.
Absolutely, absolutely. Lana checked in and said, can we offer forgivable loans for doctors and nurse practitioners who are willing to work in Black and marginalized neighborhoods, give them an incentive to want to work in our hoods versus suburban hospitals? What's your take on that, Christine? Are we seeing some more progressive policy about keeping good talent, medical talent in neighborhoods that are often seen as being disenfranchised or marginalized versus neighborhoods that have access to quality health care?
Yeah, I think it's a really important point that your viewer has picked up on, that we need more medical providers, particularly in those neighborhoods. And we also need more Black Americans going into medical care and mental health care, and more Hispanic and Latino Americans going into care, because a lot of people prefer to see a physician that has their own same life experience. From health insurance providers, there has been a lot of work happening to support scholarships for people, to encourage them to go into medicine, and to encourage them to stay within their communities and make that a really good and profitable move for them, so that they can see the people that they would prefer to see and stay in the communities that they love so much. So there is a lot of work happening in this space, and it does take time. And I know, as much as we'd like to, make things happen immediately, these are very big changes that we'll see over time, some improvements being made.
Absolutely, absolutely. Easy Answer checked in and said, look, Obama's guaranteed our money to healthcare syndicates. The Democrat-controlled government should regulate prices until everyone can afford healthcare. I don't know if that can happen. I don't know if that can happen. But to Easy Answer's sentiment, it just seems like healthcare, as much it is I would say the great equalizer. I mean, everybody has a body. We all want to make sure we stay around for a long time. This is very serious. That just gets to that point. But it's still a very political situation, a political topic. And I'm trying to figure out, Christine, how do we take the politics out of taking care of ourselves?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think more and more what we see, regardless of what party you belong to or where you fall on the political spectrum, people recognize that you need to take care of your health and your financial stability. And that includes your mental health. When we look at America and what has worked historically in our country and what the American people prefer, and we see this in study after study, is they want to have personal control and choice over what they think will work best for them. And they want a robust competitive environment where you have businesses who are competing with one another to offer a better product at a lower cost. And when we have that robust competition, it really does work, not just to lower costs, but to improve the quality, because we can't lose sight of the fact that we need high quality care as well, so that people can get better faster.
Yeah, I mean, we need high quality care across the board, regardless of your race, regardless of gender, regardless of your zip code. It just needs to happen. I mean, we can't talk about the greatness of America if we're not willing to invest in the health and well-being of this country. And, it's like you mentioned, it's beyond political labels. It's beyond ideology. It just gets down to something very, very fundamental. We're trying to save lives. And that's it. And health insurers should not be in the business. And they call me crazy, but health insurers should be working for the people and not just be working to make a profit. And I think that's the thin line that people are seeing, and that's the line that is often crossed when you're talking about healthcare affordability.
Yeah, no, I think you make some really good points. When you look at the health insurance provider business, one of the things that the Affordable Care Act did is it put into place something called the medical loss ratio. And what that said is, depending on what kind of coverage you have, at least 80 to 85 cents of every dollar that you spend on premium has to go directly to medical care, whether that's paying for a doctor or hospital or prescription drugs or some other form of care. So that means you have a very small amount and a smaller amount every year of that premium dollar that's going to anything that looks like a profit for the health insurance providers. In fact, if you look at their business of the coverage that they have, the insurance coverage, the profit margin on that tends to be mid-single digits. If you compare that to something like the prescription drug industry, their profit margins are more like 25%. So, you're looking at a very small number in comparison when you look at those percentages. But, we're working to make that efficiency grow every day. I mean, we want the cost of health insurance to go down. We want people to pay lower premiums. We want them to pay lower copays and deductibles. The way we do that is to get those underlying costs of care down because they are so much of the premium dollar. And the other thing that you mentioned too that's important is focusing on this issue of health equity. This has been something that we have really been talking a lot about over the past 5 years in particular. How do we improve care so that it is more equitable, that we have more opportunities for people to be healthy to begin with? How do you create that infrastructure and partner with the community so that they have this infrastructure that they need and this access that's so important to them? So on our website, ahip.org, we have a whole section dedicated to health equity where we have a lot of resources about that and would love for folks to visit that and check that out too.
All right, you say ahip, ahip.org is the website for AHIP, and you can learn more. There it is. What is open enrollment, the importance of it. Millions of Americans, the end of the year is open enrollment season. Folks, you do not want to miss out on an opportunity to get the best healthcare plan that is for you and for your family. So, I think this is so important. Really quickly, Christine, we got about 30 seconds left, but one of my online culture crew members, Corinna, pointed out, what about dental care? Feels like that goes under the radar sometimes. It is so expensive, even with insurance. Can you speak to that very quickly?
You're absolutely right. The dental care is a very important part of your overall health. And what we find is there's oftentimes where a dentist might identify a chronic illness that you have or some sort of other illness that your primary care doctor may not have had the opportunity to catch. So dental care is very important. There are a lot of choices available for dental care as well. And there, it's a matter of shopping around to see what you're comfortable paying. If you want to pay a little bit more in premium for lower copays, or if you want to pay lower premium for higher copays, but really look at those choices and think about dental care as an overall part of your well-being.
There it is. Folks, if you need some assistance in navigating through the space of open enrollment for healthcare coverage, make sure y'all check out ahip.org. And Christine, we thank you so much for taking time out your busy schedule to be with us, to talk to us a little bit about the importance of it. Again, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart because I feel like we don't have this type of conversations enough, especially within Black and other marginalized communities that we need to have. And the same conversation about life insurance, it's so important that we understand the importance of coverage, because the last thing we want to do is that if one of our loved ones fall ill or even passes on, that they're covered, that they are covered and they get the support, the financial support that they deserve in that transition. So again, Christine, thank you so much for being with us here on The Culture.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause when we come forward. Let's continue to talk about health and wellness. We're going to check in with fitness expert Robert Brace to talk about how we can live a holistic, healthy life. Stay with us. That conversation is coming up right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, our final conversation continues in the same vein of health and wellness. And while we can talk about healthcare coverage, there are still some things that you can do, you and I can do, to make sure that we are still living our best holistic, healthy lives. And so my next guest, Robert Brace, who is an expert, who is a fitness expert, to talk to us a little bit about how do we start to make better choices and make different decisions about our health. Now, we all know as adults and those who are tuning in, you have children, we all understand the importance of it. But the biggest challenge that I think that for a lot of people, including myself, is staying committed to the promise that you want to live a healthy, holistic life. And so Robert here is going to give us some insight about how to do so. So Robert, welcome to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. How are you this afternoon, sir?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Good to be here with you.
Yes, sir, brother. Yes, sir. All right. So Robert, let's talk a little bit about, you just heard a little bit of that conversation about health insurance, right?
Yes.
So how does and I'm just want to get your brief answer on this. How does that fit with the whole conversation about health and wellness? I mean, people tend to believe and there are various schools of thoughts, I'm sure you are familiar with them, that some people say, well, look, as long as I keep my body healthy, I'm good. I don't necessarily need coverage, right?
Right.
Then there's another group of folks that is like, well, as long as I got coverage, I don't need to do really much to my body.
Yes. I've heard both.
And then you got people right like yourself with I'm going to get the coverage and I'm going to work on my body.
That's right. So you need the bottom line. You got it absolutely right, man. You need to be doing both,
Right.
And,
so there's some disparities because health and wellness, and when we talk about health and wellness, holistic living, a lot of people got a lot of different things. People are getting news and their knowledge about these things from a number of different sources.
Right.
And so at this point, it's who do you listen to? Where do you go to? How do we start the process to be in a better space about this?
Right. I mean, this is a great question, especially for our people, right? And just a little bit about me. Yes, I am a fitness expert. I have a boutique gym in downtown Manhattan where most of our clientele are high-powered Black women. And I was a full-time minister in Harlem for 6 years. Me and my wife built a church there in Harlem. So I say all that to say that, look, health affects everybody, but there are very specific ways in which it affects our culture. And so when you talk about, some people think saying, look, if I'm insured, then I don't need to worry about my health, or if I'm healthy, I don't need to worry about being insured. Those are very real things for us. And especially over the past couple of years with the pandemic, with the stress of witnessing racial injustice, the stress and the health impact on our community has been a lot higher. And so I think for us, we've got to understand, look, the first stop for health insurance is really, like you said, ensuring that our health is where it needs to be. And in terms of thinking about that, and I know you were alluding to the new year as well.
Yeah.
We've got to start. Everybody has to start by thinking about what does wellness mean for them. And what I mean by that is, what does it mean for you to be well? Not just physically. We know the physical part, and the physical part I can get to, but there's mental stress that we face day to day, whether that's stress from your job, your relationships, stress just from watching the political and social scene that is happening right now. How are we dealing with that? How are we having conversations about that? And so, we take a mind, body, and soul approach. So that would be mind, right? What are you thinking about? What are you letting into your mind? What conversations are you having? How are you being affected by the news? And how are you processing that? And then the physical body, but also the soul. And when I talk about soul, obviously there's the spiritual, ethereal soul, but I'm talking about soul level qualities. Like, do you have love in your life? Do you have peace in your life? Do you have a sense of purpose in your life? And having those as well, there is science that has proven that if you have a purpose, if you have a community around you, if you have a sense of peace, that can stave off many different illnesses and even medical conditions. So you've got to have a balance of all three.
So yes, and you are known as the mind, body, soul connector.
Correct.
Right, because part of the challenge has been, and I think this is something that, and based upon your work, and take a look at some of the video that we got of Brother Robert and his team. But part of that is we have often like disconnected those three parts of ourselves to three different things, and it's just been recently has the connection or connecting the dots between you can have a great body, but you could be soul fully deficient, and I'm just trying to say that, you know what I'm saying? Or you can have the love, you can have the peace, but it doesn't translate to the peace of your body or being at one with your body, or that your mind, like there's so many different connections. And so talk to us a little bit about that, because that's a new space for a fitness expert to take, a different approach for a fitness expert like yourself to take.
Right. Well, I think there's a couple of ways to look at it. The easiest way that I describe it to people so people make an immediate connection is have you ever been hangry, right? So when you
said hangry?
Hangry, Hangry, right?
All the time.
You experience you experience anger based upon you not having something to eat, right? And so many times we're trying to think the mental is different from the physical, but the fact that you not having food, something physical, is causing a mental reaction, you're angry, shows you that there's a mind-body connection, right? There's a reason why soul food is called soul food, because it's not just about the taste in your mouth. It's about what it does to you internally, the memories you have, the connections you have. If you want to go even deeper, you look at our history with food, right? So when it comes to the mind, body, and soul connection, we've got to understand, and again, going back, another easy way to describe it is going back to stress. If you are stressed, and when we talk about stress is any unresolved negative emotion, right? So if you have an issue in your marriage that's not resolved, that's stress. If you have a financial issue that is unresolved, you're thinking about it day to day. Might not be the biggest thing, but it's in the back of your mind, running. That's stress, right? If on your job, there's that boss or there's that coworker who's always, nagging you, all of that, that's called chronic stress. It's the day-to-day stress that is in your life, right?
And Brother Robert, how do you carry that? I want us to kind of emphasize that, right? Because many of us may wake up feeling anxious, nervous. Many of us may wake up feeling angry. Many of us may wake up feeling tired.
Right.
We wake up feeling fatigued, right? So are these signs of that chronic stress?
I think your question is excellent, because it's right along the lines of how I make that connection, right? Because those things we've talked about are chronic stress. Now, how does that affect us in our bodies? Because sometimes we can think, yo, suck it up, move on. This is life. Life is tough.
Come on, man.
Right?
We black people, man.
Right,
Come
exactly.
On,
we've been through tougher things than this, right? So what am I crying for?
Right.
Here's the thing. When you're stressed, right, the body takes away blood from your gut, because you're in the fight or flight response, right? So when you're stressed, back in the day, if you had to run away, and our ancestors had to run away from a bear or something like that in the woods, the body would flush your blood with sugar and energy so you could fight or you could run, right? Now, when the danger is gone, your body comes back to normal. But now we're not running away from lions or bears. The body responds the same way when we are stressed about our relationships, our finances, or whatever. So to your question, what happens then is the body will increase cortisol, right? Cortisol is part of the stress response. releases more sugar into your blood, except you don't have to use that sugar because you're not fighting or running away. That sugar stays inside your body. It can cause inflammation. It can cause early onset Alzheimer's. It can cause heart disease, right? That's just from stress. When we're stressed, the body takes blood away from the stomach and puts it in your extremities because you're supposed to fight or run away. So it's taking blood from your internal organs and putting it into your muscles. That's when we start to get stomach issues, irritable bowel, because there's less blood going to our digestive system, right? When the body's brilliant because it's like, again, trying to give you the energy to fight or flight, right? So fight or flight means you probably shouldn't be sleeping right now if you have to fight a lion or a bear. So your sleep patterns get affected. Your reproductive health gets affected. And so we may think, let's just suck it up and move on. But in doing so and not addressing the stress, we've already talked about reproductive system. We've talked about your stomach. We've talked about inflammation, putting on weight, Alzheimer's. This is how your mind and what you're going through affects your body. Now, the good thing is, when it comes to movement and exercise, right? And I want us to get out of, because sometimes, someone like me comes on and starts talking about exercise. And if some people have seen some of our results and what we do, they're like, oh, that looks way too intense. Yes, there is that part of exercise, but I'm talking about moving so that you sweat, so that you stretch a little bit, so that your heart rate is raised. As soon as you start to do that, the body releases serotonin, right? So the body's feel-good hormone. You start to feel better. If you had a workout and you walk out of the gym just feeling a little bit more energy, that's the serotonin working, right? So that's a little sense of joy. You move, it increases the prioritizing function of the brain. So if you eat too much, work too much, it helps you make better decisions and handle any kind of extreme behavior. If you work out, you got to be at a place where you push for about 20 minutes. So you're pushing yourself, right, for about 20 minutes. The body releases, and this is the one I love, a hormone called endocannabinoids. Now, the root ingredient of endocannabinoids, which your body naturally produces, is the same root ingredient as in cannabis. So it's called the bliss hormone. So if you've ever worked out, and some people get a runner's high, or you dance a lot and you get that feeling of elation, the body gives you that. So we've talked about moving that gives you peace, moving that gives you bliss, moving that gives you mental focus. Those are spiritual soul level qualities. So that's how we make that connection, that the more you move, the more oxytocin is released, which is going to make you feel more love and bonding, right? Serotonin is going to make you feel happier and take the edge off of any stress, right? It's going to release reduce adrenaline. You got endocannabinoids. It's going to make you feel bliss. This is how you connect physical activity to what's going on a spiritual level. So I'm hoping that's making the connection for people there.
It's making a lot of sense, Brother Robert. A lot of sense. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation with mind, body, and soul connector Robert Brace. And I'm also going to get your questions and comments as part of the discussion. Folks, we're talking about how to live your best life holistically. And you have to focus on your mind, your body, and your soul. We're doing that with Robert Brace and you. So stay with us. More of this conversation up next right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
All right, folks, we've been having a conversation here about how to live your best life holistically, and we've been talking to mind, body, soul, connecting fitness expert, Mr. Robert Brace. Brother Robert, again, thank you so much for your time. You dropping some jewels, brother. You're dropping some jewels and making the connect. I'm serious, because as I'm listening to you, I'm like, damn, man, like, so much is on our minds nowadays, right? And so this type of understanding, it empowers you. Like, first you become very critical of yourself, like, damn, I should be doing more for myself. I should be doing more for my health. But then once you get past that, you start to feel empowered. Like, at least I have the information, the knowledge, starting with some starting knowledge.
Right.
So let's just focus on that for the final few moments where we're together, Brother Robert. What would you recommend for people to start living a little bit better, especially we're coming around the holiday season, and this can be, depending on your experience, the holidays can be full of joy or can be full of anxiety and in pain.
Yeah.
So how do we start to implement some of these ideas?
Okay, I think because we've got a little bit of time, I want to give your audience the best possible nugget that they can take away.
Please,
especially brother. Because you just hit on something that happens a lot. We hear this information and we can kind of, like you said, get down on ourselves, critical. I should have been doing this. Why haven't I done it up until now? And look, partly my industry, the fitness industry, has done that, right? Has made people get into fitness because of what they don't like about themselves rather than what they love about themselves, right? You know what I mean? And you think about it, it's you look, it's you got to fix, improve, reshape, right? All of these things, right? Anti-wrinkle, anti-cellulite, anti-aging, basically anti-you, right? But what we've got to do is connect. Look, we've got to connect with the fact that we were made from divine love to be divinely loved and to give divine love, right? And every single person here, if every single person connects with the reason why, if you connect with your own reason why, then it's going to make the action much easier, right? Don't take somebody else's reason why. Don't take the fitness's reason why with the images on magazines that look nothing like you, right? You got to figure out your own reason. And this is what I mean. In every single one of your viewers right now, there is a sense of goodness. They have been somewhere, done something, helped somebody, right? And there are people who are grateful for them just because of who they are. Every one of your listeners, there is a sense of greatness, whether it's they have this talent, this gift that they do better than anyone else, that they give back to their community. It doesn't have to be this huge thing. It could be just that you are that person that everybody talks to. You are the person who always brings the food when somebody needs it, right? You have a gift, right? So you have a goodness in your nature, a giving spirit in your nature. And sometimes we sacrifice, we go over and above to give to others. So that's a giving spirit, a good spirit, a great spirit, and a giving spirit. The world needs to see more of that from all of our listeners. And that is why we take care of the temple that houses our spirit, so that more of that goodness, more of that greatness, and more of that giving spirit can be manifest. Because you can't do it if your body is not healthy. And your body is the vehicle through which you are going to make your biggest contribution in the world, and through which you are going to accomplish your purpose. And so, you've heard the phrase, the body is a temple, right?
Right.
When you think about a temple, when the ancients built a temple, they built it, and whatever religious background you're from, they built the temple to express the greatness of the divinity that lived inside it, right?
Right.
Even though they knew that they could never quite match the divinity that lived inside it. Every single person has a divinity. That word in the Hebrew is kavod. We all have a kavod, a weight of our worth, right? A weight of who we are as a human being, right? And so our job is to take care of the temple that houses that spirit, right? And lives up to the power, the depth, the greatness within each and every single one of us. Now, if each of us built our personal temple to match the greatness of the spirit that's within it, how great would our communities be?
Come on, brother.
How healthier would our communities be? Would we need a New Year's resolution? No, we wouldn't, because we would already know within our spirit it's worth getting the extra rest, eating a healthy meal, going for a walk, taking a workout, because we're not working out to meet some image in some magazine that's been photoshopped by somebody who doesn't look like us. We're moving to match the divinity of the spirit within us. And that is how you have a personal revolution and a cultural revolution within our communities.
Hey, Brother Robert,
Yep.
that's a whole different motivation, brother.
That's it.
That's a whole different motivation. It's not to be, some people get motivated because of social media. Some people get motivated because they want to attract the opposite sex, right? Some people get motivated for personal reasons, but it is a whole different motivation when you say, how do I match my physical body to the divine spirit that's within me? Correct. How do I reflect that? If this body is my temple, which it is, and I look at fitness as the pathway to bring me into a level of consistency, a personal consistency with the spirit that I have. So my love for the creator, my love for the prophets and messengers, my love for the word, my love for the spirit.
All of that
needs to match the temple that all of that is housed. Come on, brother. Come on, man. You're taking me to church and to the gym at the same time, Brad.
That's what this is about.
You know what I'm saying? We can't. I don't know how to process this information, Brother Robin. I don't know if you're my pastor, you're my fitness.
But it's all in one, right? That's what I'm saying. It's all one. The body is a divinely created being. Again, it doesn't matter what faith tradition you are from, right? It's divinely created. And so, and our spirit lives within that. And listen, man, if you want to take it onto another level.
Come on, we got a few moments left.
If you think about how much Black people have had to overcome just to be here today, just to be positive, just to get up and have a positive, faithful attitude, you think about the power of that spirit and where we are today as a people and where we're going. And if you think about how big, powerful, resilient, loving that spirit is, and then you decide to match health and physicality to that, how powerful could we be? Stress is killing us because we're not taught or we don't see how to make this connection. Many of us know people in our family who have diabetes, who have heart issues, who have arthritis, right? Who have stress. But because of the way our community has in a lot of ways been forced to handle stress, we don't deal with it, right? Think about if we matched our physical and our efforts to be healthy to the power and the greatness of the Black spirit en masse. We would be unstoppable, and we would take care of our health. And the end result of that is, you might get a slimmer waist and some six-pack abs, right? But that's the end result. You know what I'm saying? So
nothing wrong with edifying your spirit and getting a nice little six-pack in the mix.
You know what I'm saying? So you can get it all.
Hey, look, Brother Robert, we our time has been well spent, and I want to give people a chance to connect with you.
Okay.
On social media, website. So talk to us about the work that you're doing, how they can find you, dear brother.
Okay, so the most simple way is on Instagram at Robert Brace. That's my name, at Robert Brace, BRACE. But you can get free resources right away, right? At thebracelife.com, thebracelife.com. You can get free resources there. And I want to give this away now. My team just put it together. And if you enter your email here, you can get a whole mind, body, soul. It's like 60 pages, mind, body, soul workbook, right? Yeah, you put your information in there and you get 14 days free. And it's workouts, meditation, it's mindful stuff. But the other one is thebracelife.com, and then you put spirit-led-body, spirit-led-body after thebracelife.com, and you will get, just put your information in there, and my team will send you, this workbook that talks about the physical. It talks about your finding your eating relationship. It talks about how to change, how to create a new physical wellness identity for you. There's a whole bunch of good stuff. So that's the biggest gift I can give you.
There it is, the biggest gift right there. All right, Brother Robert, I want to say I would love to bring you back on, dear brother. I need to bring you back on as we continue these conversations. There it is, folks. The Brace Life Spirit-Led Body. Unlock the biblical secrets to a dramatic mind, body, and soul transformation in 28 days, folks. That means technically, by the time the new year comes around, if you work hard enough, you might be able to get it in. Start your new year's in a very, very different, holistically healthy space. So definitely check out my brother's The Brace Life. You can find all of his information online. Definitely check him out on social media. And Brother Robert, I just got to say, I got to bring you back on, man. I got to bring you back on, brother.
Anytime you let me know, I'm there.
I truly appreciate you, man, and continue to do the great work. And I know that the God has blessed you in a lot of different ways, but most importantly, thank you for giving your insight and helping us to connect the dots between mind, body, and soul, brother, because that's exactly what we need in this day and time. So I thank you for the great work and being so good for the culture, bro.
Thank you, and thank you for the work you do. Appreciate it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank
you.
Bye.
Oh, man, oh, man. I don't know about y'all, but I was lifted. And I see y'all, sisters. I see you. The accents always get the women. Along with the dental. I get you. Folks, that is going to do it for us here on the show. I thank each and every one of you. Make sure y'all check us out on our website at the Black Star at blackstarnetwork.com. You can do your part to continue to support us here at Black Star Network as we're doing the great work of having these conversations with Brother Robert Brace and with others, as you saw today, to make sure that we are informed and stay up to date on what's happening about the world around us and within us. So make sure y'all check us out at blackstarnetwork.com. Follow us on social media at Black Star Network on IG and Twitter. Follow yours truly, The Real Farajii. You can find me on IG and Farajii on Twitter. And I would love to connect with you as we continue to build our community, the online culture crew. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned. Up next is Roland Martin Unfiltered at 6 p.m. streaming live on the Black Star Network. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll be checking in tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Have a safe and great afternoon and evening. Look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Peace.